Shalom. In Perek Asochet Poalin in Bava Metzia, we have 5 pages dealing with Midrash, with Agadata, with different topics, human topics, experience, human experience, and one of the most, I would say, delicate, fragile topics are afflictions. We all know that that human existence is filled with struggling, and today what we'll do is just have a look on 2 different ways that Chachamim are suggesting that we can deal with afflictions in this world. And I share the screen and let's see what we have and what Chachamim are teaching us. So I first quote 2 words that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is saying, that the Gemara in Daf Pei Hey is quoting him. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is saying, afflictions are precious. Chavivin Yesurim. And obviously, this is not an easy way to look at the things. Like, how can you say that afflictions are precious? It's a lot of pain and it's a lot of suffering. How can we say such a thing? And also the poet in Sefer Tehillim, in Psalm, is saying the same thing. Ashrei hagever asher tiyasreinu yah. Happy is the man whom you discipline, O Lord. And the discipline, the musar in Hebrew, has the same root of the word Yesurim, Yud Samech Resh. In other words, musar, discipline, is something that is coming to teach us something, how to do the right thing. So Yesurim, afflictions, come in order to teach us something, says Tehillim. Therefore, we're happy to have them. O Lord, the men you instruct in your teachings. Okay, so one way of looking at afflictions are, what does God want to tell me through that pain, and what is He teaching me through that? And be happy that He's sending me those Yesurim, because it means He cares about me. Prophet Yirmiyahu is saying something different, in a slightly different way, but totally looking at it from another perspective. Yasreni Hashem ach b'mishpat al be'abcha tamiteni, says the pasuk, "O Lord, correct me, but in due measure, not in the anger, lest thou bring me to nothing." And Rav Steinsaltz's explanation on this pasuk says, "Therefore, Lord, chastise me and instruct me, but do so with justice, taking into account my fragilities and limitations, and do not do so in your wrath, lest I will be unable to withstand in and you diminish me." In other words, the prophet Yirmiyahu is saying, I understand that you want to teach me, and I understand that sometimes you're sending across my way difficult struggles and difficult happenings, but please do so carefully, because if it's going to be too much, I'm going to break, or it's going to diminish me. So therefore, yes, please, Yasreini Hashem, correct me, teach me through the Musar and through Yisurim, but not too much. Please be careful, because me as a human being, I'm fragile and I'm limited. So don't do it too much. And those 2 motions that we have in the Tanakh and in the Midrash and in the Talmud, and later on where Jewish philosophy elaborates on those things, in one way in hand, we're holding the fact that existentially we all suffer this way or another, and in the other end, we believe that everything that happens to us is from God. So how do we dance between those 2 notions, and how do we take the suffering and elevate them to something positive in a way that it does something good, that we can do something good in this world through the suffering and through the pain and through the afflictions? This discussion is an old discussion in the Talmud, and we met it for the first time in Masechet Brachot. And I'm just bringing one chapter in order to remind us this very, very essential discussion in Chazal in Masechet Brachot. And previously, the Gemara discusses suffering that results from one's transgression. But the Gemara shifts the focus and discusses suffering that does not result from one's from one's transgression, and the suffering, and discuss the suffering of the righteous. And it doesn't have to be righteous tzaddik, a completely tzaddik, but someone that knows that he's okay. I'm okay. I didn't do something which is so wrong in order for this suffering to come in my way. So Rava, and some say Rav Chisda, is offering that if a person sees that suffering has befallen him, he should examine his actions. Okay, examine his actions. Meaning, okay, this is what something bad happened to me. Let me check myself to see that I'm okay, that I didn't do something wrong, that I didn't transgress. And if I found out that I spoke wrongly or did something bad, I should fix it, lasot tikkun, repent, fix, and can move on with my life. But what Rav Chisda and Rav Rava are saying is, what if, but what if he examined himself, and he sees that there's no wrong thing, no wrongdoing that he did. Reminds us of Eov. So then he should think that maybe this happened to him. He may attribute to the lack of Torah learning. So if you did not learn enough Torah and you come to bitul Torah, maybe that's why the Yesurim come to you. In other words, you search in yourself, you can say very honestly, I didn't do anything bad, but maybe I didn't give enough time to study of Torah. Maybe that's why God is sending me those messages. But sometimes, says Rava or Rav Chisda, sometimes you search and you see that there's nothing wrong with bitul Torah. Whenever you have a chance, you learn Torah. Then, if you did not find anything that has to do with bitul Torah, then what you have to think is that you get these afflictions out of love. Yesurim me'ahava. That God brought you these Yesurim me'ahava. Now, the word the phrase Yesurim me'ahava, we can understand it in two ways. God loves us, therefore he sent us Yesurim in order for us to be better, deeper, wiser, to do more in the world. Or Yesurim me'ahava, whenever I have Yesurim me'ahava and I didn't find any sin that I had or any bitul Torah, I should accept them with love because I believe they come from Hashem. These are two different ways to handle the idea of Yesurim me'ahava. But what we find is that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, the Holy One, blessed be He, gave Israel three precious gifts. The Gemara continues with this idea of why afflictions are coming to the world, and maybe why they're coming to the world to good people. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is saying, yes, there are three gifts that come together with suffering. It's Eretz Israel, Torat Israel, ve'haolam haba. In other words, there's some, this is something which is a contradiction. It's two things that contradict each other. If it's a gift, it should feel nice. But Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai is telling us some of the best gifts that we have in life is those things that we acquire through understanding the weight, the importance of these things in our life. And if we're willing to give all we have to those things, then we actually acquire them as our own gift, and it comes with suffering. I think what's the most beautiful thing about, or maybe beautiful is not the word, but the most astonishing thing about this discussion in the Gemara in Brachot is that the Gemara adds another story, and the story that the Gemara adds in the whole discussion of Yisurin me'ahava is a story about Rabbi Yochanan that went to visit to do Bikur Cholim to Rabbi Chia bar Abba, that was very, very ill. And Rabbi Yochanan enters the room to visit Rabbi Abba, And let me just remind us that Rabbi Yochanan himself suffered a lot in his life. He lost his parents when he was a child, when he was a baby. He lost his sons in different occasions. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan knows what it means to be to suffer, to have afflictions in your life. And when he enters the house of Rabbi Chia, he asks Rabbi Chia a very strange question. He says, "Is your suffering dear to you?" I hear him as if he's saying him, do you know that thing that Chachamim are saying that you should accept, suffering with love? Do you like them? Chavivin Yesurim, do you like them? I think what Rabbi Yochanan is doing here, he's giving us an opening to say, I don't like the suffering. The suffering is sometimes suffering is too much. And he gives Rabbi Abba this gift by saying, do you like them? And do you desire them? And Rabbi Chia said to him, I welcome neither the suffering nor its reward. In other words, it's legitimate to say, if the suffering will bring me a reward afterwards, I don't want that because the suffering are too much. I welcome neither this or this. Don't give me the suffering and don't give me the reward afterwards. And I think the fascinating thing is that Chachamim understand that suffering as an existential part of human beings, we cannot just frame it as a positive thing because sometimes it's too much. And maybe also what Rabbi Yanai in the Mishnah in Masechet Avot is saying, En beyadenu lo mishalvat hareshaim ve'af lo miysurei hatzadikim. We can understand this phrase also in two different ways. Rabbi Yanai is saying it is not in our hands to explain the reason either of the security of the wicked or even the afflictions of the righteous. Okay, and this is what we call theodicy, the tzedek eloki. A tzaddik and bad things are happening to him, and a rasha with good things that are happening to him. But I want to offer that these words of Rabbi Yanai means also something else. Maybe Rabbi Yanai is saying, I don't want these two extremes. I don't want the quiet and the security of the wicked, but I also don't want the other side of the suffering and the afflictions of the righteous persons. I don't want to be in those two opposites. I want to be in the middle, to have normal life, not a wicked one and not a tzaddik one. Okay, just normal life of normal people with normal, struggles of life. Rabbi Tenura, who is the Mishnah commentator from the 15th century in Italy, Ravenu Ovadia Bartanura is saying the following thing: we do not have in our hands. What does that mean? En beyadenu, we do not have in our hands. And he says, like it says in Yevamot, it was not in his hand, meaning to say, this matter is not known to us. Why the way of the wicked is successful, and for what reason the righteous are suffering with afflictions, right? In other words, sometimes we see tzaddikim that have afflictions, and we know that they are tzaddikim. They didn't do anything bad, anything really bad to deserve such afflictions. In other words, again, there's an opening to say that, and not accepting Yesurim with love, lovingly. Another explanation, says Rabbeinu Bartenura, during the time of the exile, we do not have any of the tranquility and quiet that the Holy One, blessed be He, is accustomed to give the wicked in order to drive them out of the world to come. And not even any of the afflictions that are the designs for the righteous, which are the afflictions of love, which do not entail squandering of Torah study. This is to say, we have left the category of wicked, and we do not have the tranquility that the wicked have, but we have not reached the category of the righteous, as our afflictions are not of love like the afflictions of the righteous. In other words, and I think it's so beautiful. Bartenura understand the words of Rabbi Yana is to say, look, God, we are normal people, okay? And we don't have not in this world where when we're in exile, we don't have the quiet of the reshaim because we're not reshaim. But we also cannot be in the category of the afflictions of the righteous with love, because and learn Torah, because this is not our situation. If what we had is suffering and still had time to learn Torah, meile beseder. But in the exile, we suffer so much. Our head is always down in the ground. We don't have time to feel that we are human beings and can learn Torah, just for our pleasure. There is no pleasure in the afflictions that we feel in the diaspora. Again, another way of saying sometimes the afflictions that God gives us, it's too much. It's too much. We just want to live normal, standard lives. And I wanna end with two very interesting sayings that Bereshit Rabbah and the Gemara is saying. We find a quote in Bereshit Rabbah that says there is no man who goes through life without afflictions. In other words, says the Midrash, you know what? When you see someone suffers, don't think right away that he's a tzaddik, and don't think right away that he's a rasha, because there's no one in this world that goes through life without afflictions. And then again, the role, or the point, or the advice to be is, don't drown in your afflictions, or don't think that if afflictions came to your life, it means that you are a tzaddik or a rasha. It's just things that are happening in life. And therefore, the best way to do is to ask myself, what can I do now through this suffering? What can I take this suffering to teach me about myself, to search whether there are a few things that I can fix about myself, or where I can take these afflictions and help other people to deal with afflictions in a good way from my Torah learning, for example. And of course, it echoes Viktor Frankl, Men in Search of Meaning. It echoes Rav Soloveitchik with do not ask why, but ask for what I can do. But I want to add with a very small paragraph from Gemara in Masechet Brachot that says, בשעה שהקדוש ברוך הוא זוכר את בניו ששרויים בצער, may the Holy Blessed One remember the children who are suffering among the nations of the world. God sheds 2 tears into the great sea. The sound it heard from one end of the world to another, and that is an earthquake. In other words, when God remembers his children that are suffering amongst the nations, he cries with us, and he shed tears, and he's roaring, and kolon ishma, he's roaring, and it sounds like an earthquake. And that maybe in that there's some kind of a consolation that we are not alone in our suffering, both as private people and definitely as a nation. Imo anochi batzara, God is with us in the horror thing and in the bad thing that happened to us. And there are things that only us as human beings can do in order to ease suffering in the world, in order to ease wickedness in the world. It starts with first understanding, what can we do in the world, and not let the struggles and the afflictions of life separate us from life. But also remember that we can ask God, please not too much. Please do it. Please, if this is what I need to get, do it as much as I can suffer and can still live with and be able to experience myself as a human being next to the suffering and not just in the suffering.